It was someone from the Quaker church who taught me the difference between silence and stillness. I was always, before this conversation, a little bit apologetic if I ever asked people to be silent and you could hear the clock ticking or you could hear the traffic outside or, and what he said to me was, this isn't about just physical noise for distraction. There is an inner peace and a stillness to still our hearts in God, to still our minds, to open our hearts to God. And I've always found that distinction between stillness and silence really, really helpful, actually. It makes me less of an anxious presence, I think, when I'm responsible for things and I've asked people to be silent. But having said that, the natural inclination for people on a walk is to talk, but it comes as a great relief to some folk when you give them permission, actually, to not have to speak, to not have to do the sometimes really tiring work of listening and speaking, but to just turn down the dial and somehow be more restful in God. And that's where the stillness comes in. So we have it as a discipline on Worship in the Wild to have at least one ponder spot or a section of the walk in silence. And it's not surprising, given what I've just said, that it's often the most powerful moment in that walk. I remember one particular time, which was one where I'd got myself quite stressed and concerned that I couldn't avoid a walk along a busy road being in the middle of the walk that I'd planned. And thought, this is dangerous, it's noisy, it's not the wonderful countryside that I've promised people. And we were stood by the roadside, and indeed in this middle of this walk where everything was going very well, the amount of traffic was very heavy and people really bomb along that road. And I knew that we had about a quarter of an hour to walk to the next stile and then be back in fields, rolling countryside, stream, and all of that loveliness. Then it came to me, oh, Errol, this is the silent section. Of course it is. Of course it is. Abandon the rest of your plan. It is this. There was a lass who was on the walk from Ukraine, who had been talking about her family being in danger. And there we were on the side of a road that felt dangerous. So because we had to walk in single file anyway, I said, right, this is our silent section. Let us, as we're walking, be remembering those who are in danger this day, in this moment. And if you're not the praying kind, just think of them with love and concern. But for those of us who do have faith, this is our walking prayer. We started to walk. I was at the front, and all I could hear were this wonderful rhythmic crunching of the boots behind me. I knew people had my back. Or even though the cars were going zoom, 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 I felt incredibly supported. those who were in the middle said exactly the same thing. They heard the crunch of the boots in front of them and behind them. The same at the back, the crunch of the boots ahead of them, that they felt that they were in God's slipstream. It was just incredibly moving, so that when we got to the stile, there were some folk who were really very emotional, who had felt very, very close to people in danger. And they said it had transformed the way that they even pray for those in danger, because they'd exposed themselves into that, they'd opened themselves, I should say, really, to that experience on a road where we had taken safety precautions. We were attentive to one another and to safety. We didn't have our eyes closed. But we were somehow, some way, pondering as we went. And that idea that stillness can be in the walking and in the stopping. That's that total attention, that total attentiveness to God that is somewhere very deep and very opening. So we all know when prayer can be us just doing the surface stuff, and we know how to do that. And there's still beauty in the rhythm of prayer that just continues. But there are those moments where we really give time, and we stop, and we go somewhere very deep for ourselves, and in that situation for others, that was done in stillness. And I would commend, I think, the discipline, because it is a discipline, to not switch on anything else and hear the still small voice of God.